Welcome to the 15th in a series of shows focused on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the World Health Organization designated Brookline its first age-friendly city in New England. And that was a result of a whole set of attributes that Brookline had and presented to them based on the work of the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board as it's now called, the town departments, the Brookline residents themselves, and a group of volunteer organizations that provided the leadership. In our last show, we introduced Dr. Swani Jett, the new Director of Public Health in Brookline. In this show, we have two of the people from the Department of Health that concentrate on emergency preparedness, Cheryl Ann Snyder and Sophie Gordon. Cheryl is the overall emergency preparedness person within the Department of Public Health, and she works with the Medical Reserve Corps, the Community Emergency Response Team, and with the Brookline Pantry. And Cheryl also is on the SMART board. SMART is the State of Massachusetts Animal Response Team. Prior to this, to working with the Department of Health, and in the past, Cheryl spent 17 years in publishing and 6 years in global health, including work in Africa and Haiti. Sophie Gordon, Sophie is actually French. She was born, at least, in Paris, France. And since age 9, she's been closely associated with Brookline and close ties. Sophie is the director and coordinator, actually, of the Emergency Preparedness Buddies Program. And we'll discuss what that is as we go on with the show. Sophie now lives in Brookline with her husband and 3 children. Welcome.
Thank you, Matt.
So I really want to know about the overall emergency preparedness programs, first of all. So Cheryl, can you bring us up to date on what they are and where they came from?
Sure. After 9/11, many localities started thinking about what they might want to do for an emergency situation. And if you recall President George Bush and his call to volunteerism through the 1,000 Points of Light, the Medical Reserve Corps and the Community Emergency Response Teams were both developed at the national level to try and give people a way to be involved in emergency preparedness and emergency response.
Okay.
So the Medical Reserve Corps was started out of the Surgeon General's office, and its primary purpose is to make sure that medical professionals are properly credentialed in advance of an emergency and understand how to work with first responders so that those helpers that come to an emergency and say they're doctors are actually doctors and know what to do in a crisis situation. Doctors, nurses, EMTs, what have you.
Great.
The emergency response team, the Community Emergency Response Team, was more a general program for community people to be involved in case first responders could not access them. So it started in California, actually, with the fire department. The fires, the mudslides, things like that, even earthquakes. Sometimes certain areas get cut off from the first responders. And so these community emergency response teams can help fill the gap. Here in Brookline, we primarily use the Community Emergency Response Team for sheltering and for helping the police and the fire in large situations.
So they know the town. They're people from the town.
Absolutely.
Are they seniors, or are they any all ages?
All
teenagers?
ages.
I mean, can they be?
Well, we have recently started having a few teenagers get involved in both the Medical Reserve Corps and the Community Emergency Response Team. We shorten those terms to MRC for the Medical Reserve Corps and CERT for Community Emergency Response Team.
That's what I'm used to seeing, CERT, right?
Exactly. So the Medical Reserve Corps, the MRC, is out of the Health Department. And we've got about almost 300 volunteers. They range in all ages.
Oh, wow.
I would say we're probably skewed towards people who are retired or at least empty nesters, because they have more time than people with kids still in the house. But we do have a wide range of people who volunteer their time and do the trainings to be ready to help. The same is true of the Community Emergency Response Team, or the CERT, which is run out of the police department. Both groups work very well together, which is important because in a lot of places they don't.
All right.
The Emergency Preparedness Buddies program is specific to Brookline.
Oh, okay.
After Hurricane Irene, there was a particular senior who lost her power in her building.
Okay.
And because she's deaf, she relied on her TTY machine. And when the power went out, she didn't have access to that. And once the power came back on, she went to the senior center and mentioned that no one in her building had checked on her.
Yeah, right.
And at that point, between the senior center, the health department, and the police department, we decided that we could do better for people in Brookline.
Right.
And we created the Emergency Preparedness Buddies program to try and solve that problem of people not having anyone to check in on them.
Oh, that's great, because that I've never heard of that anyplace else. And we were talking about it. That's what got us started on this when it was mentioned in the last show, that just the program itself. And we said, EP Buddies?
Yeah.
What? Emergency Preparedness? So, Sophie, you're coordinating that now? Are you? What is your role?
I have been coordinating the program for about 2 years now.
Oh, great. And how does that work? I mean, can you tell me a little bit about it? I mean, what do they call them? Coaches or?
So, yeah, we have our coaches are our volunteers.
Okay.
And then our buddies are our seniors, our adults that are disabled and don't have any families around to help them out.
Do we have a lot of isolated people that are difficult, that can't get out easily, and that need that kind of help in Brookline?
I think that we have a large population that has a need for the program, definitely.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's very hard to find them because they are isolated.
Yeah. Yeah. That's.
And there's a lot of research out there about social isolation and the role that it plays in an emergency or a disaster. Oftentimes, the people who are most vulnerable or least connected to their community are the people who fare most poorly in an emergency. And of course, they're the people who are least able to help themselves.
Oh, yeah,
so
right.
we really want to try and help them.
Yeah, I mean, we see this all over. I'm in a condo, and I see certainly there are people in my building. I'm young, and no problem. But and everybody says that until they need it, right?
Exactly.
But there are people. I know a couple of people in there, that are in their 90s, and they expect someone to check on them, and they have people they want to ask, and they've asked me to refer them to people, and I have. So
it can be hard to ask for
how do you
help.
get to them? How does someone ask for that? How do they do that?
Well, we try and do a lot of presentations at some of the elder.
We do. So we do a lot
housing.
of presentations. We also get a lot of referrals from the senior center.
Okay.
We get referrals from the Brookline Center and food pantry a
Yep.
little bit as well.
Brookline Housing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So is it? Would you then reach out to the person, or does the person, or how does? I'm sitting there and I'm in a house and I'm saying, this winter is starting to get to me, and I'm now getting nervous. I mean, this is real, right? And I'm now getting nervous. There's some more snow coming tomorrow. Not when the show shows, but I hope. But it's true when we're filming and we're recording that there is snow coming.
Yeah.
And what if I was concerned, maybe even temporarily, that I felt that I was disabled or some reason I wouldn't get out?
The EP Buddies program isn't a program that we can help on the whim.
Okay.
Really, it's really a program where you have to be enrolled.
Okay.
So if there was a need and you wanted to call us, or if you were referred by one of our organizations, we would contact you and say, oh, you've been referred to us, or are you interested? We ask questions to make sure that there is an interest, that they really want to be part of the program. And once that's set, then we can start the process of finding a volunteer coach for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're basically, how does that work? How does a coach work with a buddy? I mean, that sounds, what you're describing sounds good to me. I mean, it sounds like they're basically deferring to the needs of the person and needing the help. How would that work?
So the coach is there to help the buddy get prepared for an emergency. So they're really there to prepare them in advance. They're not going to be there to help them in the middle of an emergency. Right. They're not going to go and get them food and bring them food in the middle of a blizzard, or go and help them because there was a fire in their apartment, for example. They're really there to get them started in their emergency preparedness needs. And once they're prepared, they'll contact them regularly when we have known emergencies. And a known emergency could be a heat alert, or a blizzard, or a cold spell like we had recently.
Right.
And in that case, we'll call them and we'll let them know. The coach will call and say, are you aware there's going to be 10 days of really cold weather? Right. Do you, and it's going to be really icy, it's going to be really dangerous. Do you have enough food? Do you have enough medication? Do you have heat? If you lose power, do you have enough blankets to stay warm?
And did they reach out to their contacts, or do you encourage that too, or is it
we
not
do.
you?
Absolutely. Yeah, every time the health department sends out an emergency alert press release of that nature, whether it's for a heat wave or a cold snap or cold weather, we always activate our EP buddy coaches and have them get in touch with their buddies to make sure that they're aware. It's part of making sure that they are taking the steps that we all take to prepare for a snowstorm. We all go to the store and we all hate it. But there are things that you can do to avoid the store right before a snowstorm.
Right.
They have that boxed milk now. You could keep that in your cabinet. You can buy it in August, and it'll be there in January or February when the snow falls.
They're good for about a year.
Yeah, and you can buy a loaf of bread and put it in your freezer, and just pull it out when you need to. So you don't necessarily have to go and fight those crowds at the store the day before the snowstorm.
Oh, God,
and so that's what preparedness is about in a lot of ways.
And what if you have a pet? I mean, what would you do? Can you prepare ahead of time for a pet also? Or?
Oh, absolutely. There are all sorts of things that you can do to prepare your pet. First of all, you want to make sure that you have enough food and medicine if the pet needs medicine. You want to make sure you have a plan for if you have a dog and there's ice and snow, how will you get that pet outside to do what they need to do? Do you have enough litter for the litter box? Do you have the pee pads that they have now if you have a small enough dog for that? Do you have somebody who could come over and take that pet for a walk for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that you don't have to risk that fall. So these are all things that we try and work with the elders to think about in advance, so that when the storm comes, they're not going, now what do I do?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and if they just have a list posted that you should do this the week before, nobody's going to know what. I mean, I wouldn't deal with it. I'd put it in the drawer probably, or I'd
be like,
hide it. I mean, if you look at an emergency preparedness brochure, even the ones that we have, there's like 15, 20 things that you can do to be prepared. And a lot of people think, oh, I need to do this. This is important.
Right.
And then
put it in the drawer.
Put it in the drawer.
Oh, you know me, right?
And so really the coach is there to try and make sure that those things get done, and that the most important things for that particular person get done first.
Right. And then the coaches, do they have reporting or any of these? How is this thing managed?
So the coaches pretty much report to me.
Okay.
We have a database that the coaches can go into, and they can put all the information about their buddies that we need to know. So in
Great.
case the coach has to leave or the coach is away on vacation,
Yep.
I will be the one responsible for their buddies.
Okay.
So what happens is if any coaches for any reason has to leave the program,
Right.
I gain a buddy.
Oh. Am I going to ask how many buddies you No.
I have a few, let's put it this way.
So you start looking for coaches.
Exactly. So then I have to look for a coach to replace them.
Yeah,
But
right.
but it's good to have, because a lot of people go away, especially in the summer, and we have the heat waves, and if we know who's away, I can go and call their buddies and
Well, and you
make
have the
sure.
data. I mean,
And
you
I have the
the
data,
down
and I
person,
know
right.
in that case I know who I'm dealing with,
Yeah, right,
and what are their needs and what are they more susceptible to, and I can really help them strategize better over the phone if need be.
And does the buddy have? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say that when we started this EP Buddies program,
Right.
we did a lot of research because nobody wants to reinvent the wheel. And frankly, there just aren't a lot of programs like this available nationally at all. We've had a number of people come and ask us about our program from all over the country, Maine to Florida. And some of them have replicated a similar
that's great.
program in their communities as well. But the biggest problem for us is this one-on-one buddy to coach. We didn't feel like we were getting to a wide enough audience. So we've changed the program a little bit, and Sophie really has been instrumental in creating this new way of trying to
what is it?
help people get prepared.
Well, we call it the Buddy Village. So instead of doing a one-on-one visit, we do a group visit. So we go into buildings like Village, what's it called? Village at Brookline,
Right.
or Center Communities at
Center
Brookline.
communities or Goddard.
And yeah, absolutely. And so what we've done is we go once a month, and every month we talk about a different topic about emergency preparedness to a group.
Would you do that in a condo with like 40, 50 units?
If they had a community room that we could
Yeah.
do it, absolutely. So what we've done is we break down the steps to be prepared. And
Right.
so we'll start with the file of life, because that's probably the most important thing.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Where
Yes, I've seen that.
yeah, exactly. Where you can put all your medical information, your emergency contact, your medications, your doctor. It goes into this red
Yep.
folder that has a magnet, and you put it on your fridge.
And you do it once and it's there, right?
Well, you do
have to
have
maintain
to
it.
maintain it, because your medical medications could
Sure.
change, your emergency contact could change. I mean, you do have to update it maybe once or twice a year,
Yeah.
just to be sure.
But then you've got the original one. You've got something to start from.
Yeah, but the great thing is that the EMTs know to look for it. So if you have a medical emergency and they come and you can't talk, they can go to the fridge, take it with them to the emergency room.
Oh, that's great.
And so you don't even need to have a blizzard or a hurricane
Right.
for this to be useful. And frankly, most people are going to have an unexpected visit to the emergency room
Right.
far more often than they're going to be put out of their homes due to a hurricane or a flood or a fire. So this, we think, is a very important first step in trying to help people think about preparedness and get prepared.
Yeah, I think this, is a start, is something real, is something that people, once they've done, they know they've done something and they have a place to go
Exactly.
to change it. So, yeah, that's great.
And if you're going to do one thing, do this.
Right.
This is probably the most
Is that right?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
well, that's good.
Yeah, but then we'll talk about different subjects. We'll talk about communication plans. We'll talk about pet preparedness. We'll do vital documents. We even go back and we have these little scanners that Chills has, and it's completely safe. It doesn't go to a computer or the internet. It just goes directly to this little USB key,
That's
and we
great.
can scan their documents directly into the USB key and give it to them.
Right away.
And then they have it.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's not marked in any way, so you can scan your social security, your health information, your passport, whatever, your birth certificate, and if there's a flood in your apartment or your building and those documents get destroyed, you
Yeah.
still have it.
Yep.
And you can just throw this in your go bag or send it to a family member.
Okay.
And then if you need it, hopefully you'll never need
No,
it.
that's a really,
But if you need it,
Yeah.
you've got it. And the nice thing about these scanners, which we got through a mini grant from Brookline Community Foundation, is that they're not connected to the internet.
Yeah,
and
that's
they
good.
have no
That-
memory. So
they're all nervous.
it's very,
Absolutely.
very
It's
like,
safe. You don't want to
it's
go
so
to
obvious.
Staples
Yeah, right.
and
You-
have that copied because it stays in
Yeah.
the machine.
yeah, right. No, this is,
Forever.
yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
That's a big,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, flashlights are important, and we do a lot of research too to try and make sure that the supplies that we bring our buddies are really helpful for people who are older or possibly disabled and need something that's very lightweight. It's very lightweight for
Oh,
a
yeah.
flashlight. It's very bright.
won't
And
put
you
it
can actually, no, you don't want to do that in
my
the
eyes.
camera. But you can actually press it against the corner of a table.
And
So
I'll
if
put it
you
on.
have arthritis or
Yeah, right,
problems
right.
with your hands,
Right.
it still turns on well. And it's got a little clip, which is nice too.
Yeah.
But we have a wide variety of supplies that we bring, both when the coach visits the buddy one-on-one, but also when we
you
do
have
these
any-
presentations.
Can you give me an example of a coach and buddy in any of those situations that
Our success stories?
Our
Sure.
success stories, yeah. So we had,
Yeah.
remember that big hailstorm we had in 2015 in August?
It was
It
a
was
huge
like, it was huge.
hailstorm.
They were this
Yeah.
big. So
My car
anyway,
got damaged.
oh yeah, it's good.
the hail,
I had my house.
the hail damaged the roof at 99 Kent Street,
Right.
and the whole 5th floor had to be evacuated. So terrible situation.
Right.
Luckily for one of the residents on the first floor, the 5th floor, she had just enrolled in our program, and a couple weeks before the hailstorm, her buddy had come to her house to help her be prepared.
And set up her go bag. So instead of
So she had a go bag at that
Exactly.
Had a go bag.
So instead of running around and thinking, what do I have to bring with me?
Yeah, that's
she
great.
grabbed her bag. She had all her medications. She had her things that she would take with her in an emergency. They were all in that bag. She grabbed it and left.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it made it so easy. How long did it take you to pack for your last trip?
Oh man.
It takes forever, right? But if you have a go bag already packed,
Yeah, it's
you're
true.
not trying to
No, to go out,
do all of that.
I will not say that I'm prepared. You make me so nervous from that point of view.
But you don't need to be nervous.
No, I
because
understand. It's,
There's, you know,
preparation,
it's
right.
always a process, you know, and it's something that you can take in small steps.
Start
You
with
just
this.
need to be You just
Absolutely.
need to be encouraged and know what steps and what things are most important
Right.
for you. So, for example, if you have a number of medications that you take,
Right.
you want to make sure that you have a backup supply.
Absolutely.
What if you can't get to the CVS or the Walgreens for, you know, a week?
Yep.
It's not like it's never happened
Oh,
here
no.
in Massachusetts. We remember the blizzard of '78 quite well. So if you just save some extra pills at the end of the month, because you can go back like
Right,
28
certain amount.
days. So you could save a couple of pills every month, and before you know it, you've got 10 days supply.
Right.
And you don't necessarily need a set of boxes like this, which
No, of course.
are nice, but you can keep
Just
them
the
in the
idea of
pill
knowing
box.
you're having-
Just
of
knowing that they're
starting to
all in
think
that bag.
And put things together that you know you've put aside for
Exactly.
deliberately for that situation, and it's insane.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm listening.
The idea of preparedness gets a lot of people, you know, thinking, oh, those preppers who have, you know, the underground.
No,
Place,
the one
but-
thing I guess I did learn. I was in D.C. for a while, in fact, for Y2K, and I do remember that one of the things we learned down there was to keep the preparation and everything else should be separate from the problem. And you have to separate out when the problem occurs, whatever it is, outage, attack, anything like that. At that point, you don't want to have to think about what
No,
you need at that point.
not
It
at
should be
all.
sitting there and waiting.
Well, I
Absolutely.
like to compare preparedness to putting on your seatbelt. It doesn't have to be a scary thing.
Right.
And it doesn't have to mean that you think something bad is going to happen or you have to be older or disabled or sick to think about it. You put on your seatbelt every time you get in a car, not because you think you'll be in an accident today,
Right.
but because you know if you're in an accident, it will help you. And so you think about the file of life,
That's
it's your seatbelt.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I mean, I guess, and, maybe it's not even an analogy, but it is. It's, that brings it to me. Tell me, what about the buddies? Do they have any? If they're concerned, they call their coach. Is that what they would do, or do they?
If they have a concern,
I mean, they
well,
have their records.
they might not
have-
they might not have their coaches' personal numbers.
Right.
Actually, we don't necessarily recommend our coaches to give their personal information,
That makes
just
sense.
for boundaries.
Yeah.
But if they have any concern, they can call me at the health department.
Great.
And obviously, in an emergency, they should definitely call 911 in
Oh.
a real emergency. But we did have a situation just last summer, right?
Yeah, during the heat wave, we had a situation during the heat wave where we asked our coaches to call their buddies, to,
Right.
to check on them because it had been a pretty bad heat wave, just to make sure they're okay, they're staying cool. And one of our coach called her buddy. Her buddy was apparently depressed, hadn't gone out of the house for over a week, and
Right.
barely had any food left.
Oh,
So big concern. So I got a call right away from the coach, and right away we strategized what we're going to do. So we called the Brooklyn police right away, asked them to do a well check. And while they were doing that, we called the senior center, we called Brooklyn Mental Health Center,
Health, yeah.
and just for help with crisis management. Getting any input from them is always helpful, and they're great with helping us whenever we need.
yeah.
Finally, we decided that the best would be for the coach to call the buddy again and try to convince her to actually call her emergency contact
Right.
for help. And so we were successful
Yeah,
at that.
that's
Once the emergency contact was called, they came, picked her up, took her food shopping.
Well, I think the big thing is that everybody can pick up is exactly what you said, the seatbelt, preparedness, connectivity, reaching people, reaching out, and if they need somebody, you're the one to call if they want a coach. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that information will show after the show, and hopefully people will contact. They can also call the senior center, and they'll send them.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
And,
Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for
I
having
really
us.
enjoyed this, and I hope people have gotten something out of this because it's really needed.